Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Learn Anna, Learn English today.
Hi, friends. We're so happy to have you here with us today.
Today, we're talking about something that affects everyone money and the economy. Sam, can I ask you a personal question?
Of course. What is it?
How do you feel when you think about money? Does it make you stressed or excited?
That's a great question. Honestly, it depends on the day. Sometimes I feel stressed when I look at my bank account and see how much I spent this month. But other times, I feel excited when I'm saving for something I really want.
I completely understand. Money is one of those topics that can cause a lot of stress, but it's also something we deal with every single day.
Exactly. We use money to buy food, pay rent, travel, and do things we enjoy. But many people don't really understand how to manage it well.
That's so true. I remember when I first started working and got my first paycheck, I was so excited. But by the end of the month, all the money was gone and I didn't even know where it went.
Oh no, that's happened to me too. It's so easy to spend money without really thinking about it.
Right. And that's why we want to talk about money today. Not just how to spend it, but how to save it, understand it, and make smart financial decisions.
This conversation will help you learn English vocabulary related to money and the economy, and it will also give you some practical tips that you can use in your own life.
And if you're enjoying this conversation and want to improve your English with us, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel.
Yes, your support helps us create more helpful content for you. Now, let's dive into this important topic.
Sam, let's start with a basic question. What exactly is personal finance?
That's a good place to start. Personal finance is basically how you manage your money. It includes how much money you earn, how much you spend, how much you save, and how you plan for the future.
So it's everything related to money in your personal life?
Exactly. It's not about big corporations or government budgets. It's about your own financial situation and how you handle it.
I think a lot of people find personal finance confusing or boring. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's because many people never learned about it in school. We learn math, history, and science, but not many schools teach students how to manage money.
That's so true. I never had a class about budgeting or saving when I was in school. I had to learn everything by myself as an adult.
Me too. And when you're learning on your own, it's easy to make mistakes. That's why it's important to talk about these topics and share knowledge.
Absolutely. So let's break it down into simple parts. What are the main components of personal finance?
I think there are four main parts. First, there's income. That's the money you earn from your job or other sources.
Right. Income is money coming in. What's the second part?
The second part is expenses. That's the money you spend on things like rent, food, transportation, and entertainment.
So expenses are money going out. What's the third part?
The third part is savings. That's money you keep aside for future needs or emergencies.
And the fourth part?
The fourth part is investing. That's putting your money into things that might grow in value over time, like stocks or real estate.
Those four parts make sense. Income, expenses, savings, and investing. If you understand and manage these four things well, you're on the right track financially.
Exactly. And the key is balance. You want your income to be higher than your expenses, so you have money left over to save and invest.
That sounds simple in theory, but I know it can be challenging in real life.
It definitely can be, especially when unexpected expenses come up, or when you're tempted to buy things you don't really need.
Let's talk more about how to manage these challenges throughout our conversation today. Sam, you mentioned earlier that when you got your first paycheck, all the money disappeared by the end of the month. Have you figured out how to prevent that now?
Yes, the solution is called budgeting. A budget is like a plan for your money.
Can you explain what a budget is exactly?
Sure, a budget is when you decide in advance how you're going to spend your money each month. You look at how much money you'll earn, and then you plan how much to spend on different categories.
What kind of categories?
Well, you might have categories like housing, food, transportation, utilities, entertainment, and savings. You decide how much money to allocate to each category.
So instead of just spending money randomly throughout the month, you have a plan.
Exactly. Let me give you an example. Let's say you earn $2,000 per month.
Okay, I'm following.
You might decide that $800 will go to rent, $300 to food, $200 to transportation, $100 to utilities, $100 to entertainment, and $500 to savings.
I see. So you've planned exactly where every dollar will go.
Right. And then during the month, you try to stick to your plan. If you spend more on food than you budgeted, you might need to spend less on entertainment to balance it out.
That makes sense. But how do you actually create a budget? Where do you start?
The first step is to track your current spending. For 1 month, write down everything you spend money on. This helps you see where your money is actually going.
Oh, that's a good idea. I think many people would be surprised if they did this. They might discover they're spending a lot on things they don't even remember buying.
Exactly. I was shocked when I first tracked my spending. I was spending way too much money on coffee and eating out at restaurants.
Really? How much were you spending?
I was buying coffee almost every day for about $5 and eating lunch at restaurants about 3 times a week for around $15 each time. That's about $150 per month just on coffee, plus $180 on restaurant lunches.
Wow, that's over $300 per month.
I know, and I didn't even realize it because each purchase seems small. But when you add it all up, it's a lot of money.
So what did you do after you discovered this?
I made changes. I started making coffee at home and bringing it with me in a travel mug. And I started preparing lunch at home and bringing it to work.
And how much did that save you?
I saved almost all of that $300. Making coffee at home costs maybe $20 per month, and bringing lunch costs maybe $40 per month. So instead of spending $300, I was spending only $60.
That's incredible. You saved $240 per month just by making those 2 changes.
Yes, and that money could go into savings or be used for something more important.
This is such a practical example. I think a lot of people could benefit from tracking their small daily expenses.
Definitely. Small changes can make a big difference over time.
Sam, now that we've talked about budgeting, let's talk about savings. Why is it important to save money?
That's a crucial question. I think many people, especially young people, don't see the point of saving. They think, I'm young, I'll save later when I'm older and earning more money.
I used to think that way too. But that's actually not a good strategy. The earlier you start saving, the better.
Why is that?
Because of something called compound interest. When you save money and it earns interest, that interest also earns interest over time. So your money grows faster the longer you save it.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine you save $100 per month starting at age 25. By the time you're 65, you'll have saved $48,000 just from your own contributions.
Okay, so that's just the money I put in myself.
Right. But if that money earns interest, let's say an average of 7% per year, by the time you're 65, you won't have just $48,000. You'll have over $260,000.
Wait, really? That's more than 5 times what you put in.
Exactly. That's the power of compound interest and time. But here's the key. If you wait until you're 35 to start saving, you'll end up with much less money, even if you save the same amount each month.
So starting early makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. 10 years can make a difference of over $100,000 in your final savings.
That's amazing. But I think a lot of people say, I don't have any extra money to save. I spend everything I earn just on basic living expenses.
I understand that challenge, but usually there's some way to save, even if it's a small amount. Remember my coffee and lunch example? That was $240 per month that I could save.
That's true. So it's about finding areas where you can cut back even a little bit.
Exactly. And you don't have to save a lot to make a difference. Even saving $50 per month is better than saving nothing.
What are some other reasons to save money besides retirement?
Great question. There are several reasons. One important reason is to have an emergency fund.
What's an emergency fund?
An emergency fund is money you save specifically for unexpected expenses or emergencies. For example, what if your car breaks down and you need to pay for repairs? Or what if you lose your job and need money to live on while you find a new one?
Oh, I see. So it's like a safety net.
Exactly. Financial experts usually recommend having enough money in your emergency fund to cover 3 to 6 months of your living expenses.
3 to 6 months. That seems like a lot.
It is a significant amount, but it gives you peace of mind. If something unexpected happens, you won't have to go into debt or panic about money.
That makes sense. What are some other reasons to save?
Well, you might save for specific goals, like buying a car, taking a vacation, or making a down payment on a house.
So savings can be short-term and long-term?
Yes, your emergency fund and retirement savings are long term, but you might also have short term savings goals, like saving for a new laptop or a holiday trip.
I like the idea of having different savings goals. It makes saving feel more purposeful and motivating.
Absolutely. When you know what you're saving for, it's easier to resist spending money on unnecessary things. Anna, let's talk about something that many people struggle with: credit and debt.
Yes, this is such an important topic. Credit and debt can be really helpful if used correctly, but they can also cause serious financial problems if misused.
Let's start with the basics. What exactly is credit?
Credit is when you borrow money with the promise to pay it back later, usually with interest. For example, when you use a credit card, you're borrowing money from the credit card company.
And debt is the money you owe?
Exactly. If you borrow $1,000 and haven't paid it back yet, you have $1,000 of debt.
So, credit is the ability to borrow, and debt is what you owe. What about interest? What does that mean?
Interest is like a fee you pay for borrowing money. If you borrow $100 with 10% annual interest, after 1 year, you'll owe $110, the original $100 plus $10 in interest.
So, the longer you take to pay back the money, the more interest you pay?
Exactly. That's why it's important to pay off debts as quickly as possible.
What are some common types of debt?
The most common types are credit card debt, student loans, car loans, and mortgages.
What's a mortgage?
A mortgage is a loan specifically for buying a house. Because houses are expensive, mortgages are usually very large loans that you pay back over many years, often 15 to 30 years.
Wow, 30 years is a long time.
It is, but most people can't afford to buy a house with cash, so they need a mortgage. The key is to get a mortgage with a low interest rate, so you don't pay too much extra money over those 30 years.
Let's talk about credit cards. A lot of people have credit cards, but I've heard they can be dangerous. Why is that?
Credit cards can be very convenient, but they can also lead to serious debt problems if you're not careful.
How does that happen?
Well, when you use a credit card, you're borrowing money. At the end of the month, you get a bill. If you pay the full amount, there's no problem. But if you only pay the minimum payment, the rest of the balance carries over to the next month with interest added.
And credit card interest rates are usually pretty high, right?
Very high. Many credit cards have interest rates of 15 to 25% per year. That's much higher than most other types of loans.
So if you're only paying the minimum and carrying a balance, the interest can really add up.
Absolutely. Let me give you an example. If you have a credit card balance of $2,000 with 20% interest and you only make minimum payments, it could take you years to pay it off, and you might end up paying an extra $1,000 or more just in interest.
That's terrible. So the rule should be to always pay your credit card in full each month?
If possible, yes. Only charge what you can afford to pay off completely when the bill comes. That way, you avoid interest charges.
What if someone already has a lot of credit card debt? What should they do?
The first step is to stop using the credit cards and adding more debt. Then, focus on paying off the debt as quickly as possible. Some people use a strategy called the snowball method.
What's the snowball method?
You list all your debts from smallest to largest. You make minimum payments on all of them, but you put any extra money toward the smallest debt. Once that's paid off, you take the money you were paying on that debt and add it to the payment for the next smallest debt.
Oh, I see. So as you pay off each debt, you have more money to put toward the next one, like a snowball rolling down a hill and getting bigger.
Exactly. It builds momentum and motivation. Each time you pay off a debt completely, you feel accomplished, which motivates you to keep going.
That's a smart strategy. Is there anything else people should know about credit?
Yes, it's important to know about your credit score. This is a number that shows how reliable you are at paying back money you borrow.
And how does the credit score work?
If you always pay your bills on time and don't have too much debt, you'll have a good credit score, usually between 700 and 850. If you miss payments or have a lot of debt, your score will be lower.
And why does the credit score matter?
Because when you want to borrow money for a car, a house, or anything else, lenders will check your credit score. If you have a good score, they'll give you better interest rates. If you have a poor score, you might not be able to borrow at all, or you'll have to pay very high interest rates.
So building and maintaining a good credit score is important for your financial future.
Absolutely. It's one of those things that might not seem important when you're young, but it can make a big difference later in life.
Anna, we've talked about saving money, but let's talk about investing. What's the difference between saving and investing?
That's a great question. I think a lot of people use those words interchangeably, but they're actually different things.
You're right. Saving is when you put money aside, usually in a savings account at a bank. It's very safe and you can access it whenever you need it.
And investing?
Investing is when you use your money to buy something that you hope will increase in value over time. For example, you might buy stocks, bonds, or real estate.
So investing has more risk than saving?
Yes, exactly. When you save money in a bank account, your money is very safe. You might not earn much interest, but you won't lose the money. When you invest, there's a chance you could lose some or all of your money, but there's also a chance you could earn much more.
That sounds scary. Why would anyone want to take that risk?
Because over long periods of time, investing usually gives you much better returns than just saving. Remember when I talked about saving for retirement and earning 7% per year? That's based on investing, not just keeping money in a savings account.
Oh, I see. So a savings account might give you 1 or 2% interest per year, but investing could give you 7% or more?
On average, yes. Of course, some years might be better and some years might be worse. That's why investing is best for long-term goals, not short-term needs. Can you explain what stocks are? Sure. When you buy a stock, you're buying a tiny piece of ownership in a company. For example, if you buy stock in Apple, you own a small part of Apple.
And if Apple does well and makes a lot of profit, the value of your stock goes up.
Exactly. And if Apple doesn't do well, the value might go down. That's the risk.
What about bonds? What are those?
Bonds are basically loans that you give to a company or government. They promise to pay you back the money plus interest after a certain period of time.
So bonds are like the opposite of taking out a loan. You're the one lending the money instead of borrowing it.
Yes, and bonds are generally considered safer than stocks, but they usually don't grow as much.
This is all very interesting, but also a bit overwhelming. If someone wants to start investing, where should they begin?
Great question. I think the most important thing is to educate yourself first. Read books, watch videos, or take courses about investing. Don't invest money that you don't understand.
What else?
Start small. You don't need a lot of money to start investing. These days, there are apps and platforms that let you invest with very small amounts of money.
That's good to know. I think a lot of people assume you need to be rich to invest.
Not at all. You can start with as little as $50 or $100. The important thing is to start early and be consistent.
Should people try to pick individual stocks, or is there a better way?
For most beginners, I would recommend something called index funds or mutual funds rather than trying to pick individual stocks.
What are those?
An index fund is a collection of many different stocks. Instead of buying stock in just one company, you're buying a little bit of stock in hundreds of companies all at once.
Why is that better?
Because it spreads out your risk. If one company does poorly, it won't affect you too much because you own so many other companies too. It's called diversification.
Diversification. That means not putting all your eggs in one basket, right?
Perfect analogy. If you put all your money into one stock and that company fails, you lose everything. But if you spread your money across many stocks, you're much safer.
This makes investing sound less scary. What's the most important advice you would give to someone who wants to start investing?
I would say 3 things. First, invest for the long term, at least 5 to 10 years. Don't panic and sell when the market goes down. Second, invest regularly, even if it's a small amount. And third, don't invest money that you might need soon. Only invest money that you can afford to leave alone for a long time.
Those are great tips. I think investing is something everyone should learn about, even if they start small.
Absolutely. The earlier you start, the more time your money has to grow. Anna, I keep hearing about inflation in the news. Can you explain what that is?
Of course. Inflation is when the prices of goods and services increase over time, which means your money buys less than it used to.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say 10 years ago you could buy a cup of coffee for $2. Today, that same cup of coffee might cost $4. The coffee hasn't changed, but the price has gone up. That's inflation.
So inflation makes things more expensive.
Exactly. And it affects almost everything. Food, gas, rent, clothes, everything.
Is inflation always bad?
Not necessarily. A small amount of inflation is actually normal and even healthy for the economy. Most economists think that around 2 to 3% inflation per year is good,
Why is some inflation good?
because it encourages people to spend and invest their money rather than just keeping it under their mattress. If prices are slowly going up, people are motivated to use their money productively.
That makes sense. But what about high inflation? Is that a problem?
Yes, high inflation can be very damaging. If prices are going up very quickly, people's salaries can't keep up. Things become unaffordable, and people can't maintain their standard of living.
I've heard about something called hyperinflation. What's that?
Hyperinflation is extremely rapid inflation, where prices might double in just weeks or months. It's very rare, but when it happens, it can destroy an economy.
That sounds terrible. Has that actually happened in real life?
Yes, unfortunately, some countries have experienced hyperinflation and it caused huge problems. People's life savings became worthless because money lost its value so quickly.
Wow. So, how does inflation affect our personal finances?
Well, it's one reason why just saving money in a regular savings account isn't enough. If your money earns 1% interest in a savings account, but inflation is 3%, you're actually losing purchasing power.
Oh, I see. So, even though your account balance is going up, the value of that money is going down because of inflation.
Exactly. That's why investing is important. If your investments grow at 7% and inflation is 3%, you're still gaining 4% in real value.
So, we need our money to grow faster than inflation to actually get ahead.
Yes, that's one of the key principles of building wealth over time.
What causes inflation? Why do prices go up?
There are several causes. One common cause is when there's more money in the economy but not more goods to buy. Another cause is when production costs go up. Like if oil becomes more expensive, then everything that requires transportation becomes more expensive too.
And what about wages? Do salaries go up with inflation?
Ideally, yes. In a healthy economy, wages should increase along with inflation so people can maintain their purchasing power. But this doesn't always happen, and sometimes wages don't keep up with inflation.
So, if my salary stays the same but prices go up, I'm effectively earning less.
Exactly. That's why it's important to negotiate raises regularly and make sure your income is keeping pace with inflation.
This is really eye-opening. I never thought about inflation this way before.
It's one of those economic concepts that affects everyone, even if they don't realize it. Being aware of inflation helps you make better financial decisions.
Anna, let's talk about some basic economic terms that people often hear in the news but might not fully understand.
That's a great idea. I often hear these words on TV or read them in articles, but I'm not always sure what they mean. Let's start with GDP. What is GDP?
GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. It's the total value of all goods and services produced in a country during a specific time period, usually 1 year.
So it's like a measure of how much economic activity is happening in a country.
Exactly. If GDP is growing, it means the economy is producing more and generally doing well. If GDP is shrinking, it might mean the economy is in trouble.
I see. What about recession? I hear that word a lot, especially during economic downturns.
A recession is when the economy shrinks for 2 consecutive quarters. That means 6 months or more. During a recession, businesses produce less, people spend less, and unemployment usually goes up.
That sounds serious. What happens to regular people during a recession?
Well, some people might lose their jobs, businesses might close, and it's generally harder to find work. People become more careful with their money and spend less, which can make the recession even worse.
That sounds like a difficult cycle. How do recessions end?
Eventually, the economy starts to recover. Maybe the government takes action to stimulate the economy, or businesses find new opportunities and start hiring again. Recessions are a normal part of the economic cycle, even though they're difficult when they happen.
What about unemployment? How is that measured?
The unemployment rate is the percentage of people who want to work but can't find jobs. For example, if the unemployment rate is 5%, that means 5 out of every 100 people who want to work don't have jobs.
And what's considered a good or bad unemployment rate?
It depends on the country and the time period, but generally, an unemployment rate below 5% is considered pretty good. During recessions, it can go much higher, sometimes 8, 10, or even higher percent.
Let's talk about the stock market. What exactly is it?
The stock market is where stocks are bought and sold. It's like a big marketplace, but instead of buying fruits and vegetables, people are buying and selling ownership shares in companies.
And when people say the market is up or the market is down, what do they mean?
They're usually talking about major stock market indexes, which track the overall performance of many stocks. For example, in the United States, people often refer to the Dow Jones or the S&P 500.
So when the market is up, it means the overall value of stocks has increased.
Exactly. It's a way to measure the general health of the economy and investor confidence.
What about interest rates? I hear about those all the time, especially when people talk about loans or savings accounts.
Interest rates are super important. They affect almost everything in the economy. When interest rates are low, it's cheaper to borrow money, so people and businesses tend to borrow more and spend more.
But when interest rates are high,
When they're high, borrowing is more expensive, so people and businesses borrow less and spend less. But on the flip side, savers earn more on their savings accounts.
who decides what the interest rates are?
In most countries, there's a central bank that sets the main interest rate. In the United States, it's the Federal Reserve. They adjust interest rates to try to keep the economy healthy and stable.
How do they decide whether to raise or lower rates?
They look at many factors like inflation, unemployment, and economic growth. If inflation is too high, they might raise rates to slow down spending. If the economy is weak, they might lower rates to encourage spending.
This is fascinating. All these economic terms are connected to each other.
They really are. Understanding these basic concepts helps you make sense of economic news and how it might affect your personal finances.
Anna, let's talk about something more practical. How to shop smartly and save money on everyday purchases.
I love this topic. There's so many ways to save money when shopping if you're strategic about it.
Where should we start?
Let's start with grocery shopping because that's something everyone does regularly and where many people overspend.
What's the biggest mistake people make when grocery shopping?
Shopping without a list. When you go to the store without a plan, you're much more likely to buy things impulsively that you don't really need.
I'm guilty of that. I go in just needing milk and I come out with 20 items.
That's so common. The stores are designed to make you buy more. They put the essential items like milk and bread in the back of the store, so you have to walk past everything else to get them.
Oh, I never realized that was intentional.
It is. And they put expensive items at eye level, while cheaper alternatives might be on the bottom shelves where you don't notice them as easily.
So what's the solution? How can we shop smarter?
First, always make a list before you go and stick to it. Second, eat before you go shopping. Never shop when you're hungry.
Why does that matter?
When you're hungry, everything looks appealing and you're more likely to buy snacks and extra food you don't need. studies show that people spend significantly more when they shop hungry.
That's interesting. What other tips do you have?
Compare prices and look for sales. Many stores have apps now that show you weekly deals. Also, buy generic or store brand products instead of name brands. They're often exactly the same quality but much cheaper.
Really? The store brand is the same as the name brand?
Often, yes. Sometimes they're even made in the same factory. You're just paying extra for the brand name and advertising.
What about using coupons? Is that worth the effort?
It can be, but don't buy something just because you have a coupon. Only use coupons for things you would buy anyway. Otherwise, you're not really saving money. You're spending money on things you don't need.
That's a good point. What about online shopping? Any tips for that?
Yes. First, always compare prices across different websites. There are browser extensions that automatically find the best prices for you.
Oh, I've heard of those. What else?
Be careful with free shipping offers. Sometimes an item costs more on a site with free shipping than it would cost on another site, even with shipping included.
So we need to look at the total price, not just the shipping.
Exactly. Also, be aware of sales tactics. Many online stores create a sense of urgency by saying things like, only 2 left in stock, or sale ends tonight. This pressures you to buy quickly without thinking.
I've definitely fallen for that before. Is it usually true?
Sometimes it is, but often it's just a marketing technique. If you're unsure about a purchase, give yourself 24 hours to think about it. If you still want it the next day, then buy it.
That's the 24-hour rule. I've heard of that. Does it work?
It works really well. A lot of times after 24 hours, you realize you don't actually want or need the item. It helps prevent impulse purchases.
What about big purchases like electronics or appliances? Any tips for those?
Research is key. Read reviews, compare different models, and wait for sales. Major shopping holidays like Black Friday often have good deals, but make sure it's actually a good deal or not just fake marketing.
How can you tell if it's a real deal?
Track the price history of the item. There are websites that show you how the price has changed over time. If something is on sale, but it's the same price it was 2 months ago, it's not really a sale.
These are all such practical tips. I think I could save a lot of money by following this advice.
Most people could. Small savings on everyday purchases really add up over time. We've talked about a lot of financial topics today, but I think one of the most important things is having clear financial goals.
What do you mean by financial goals?
Financial goals are specific targets you set for your money. For example, I want to save $5,000 for an emergency fund, or I want to pay off my credit card debt in 1 year.
So instead of just vaguely wanting to be better with money, you have specific measurable goals.
Exactly. Vague goals don't work. If you say, I want to save more money, you might save $5 and technically achieve your goal. But if you say, I want to save $500 in the next 3 months, you know exactly what you need to do.
That makes sense. How do you decide what your financial goals should be?
I think it's helpful to have different types of goals: short term, medium term, and long term.
Can you explain what each of those means?
Sure, a short term goal is something you want to achieve in the next year or less. For example, saving money for a vacation or paying off a small debt.
And medium term?
Medium term goals are things you want to achieve in 1 to 5 years. This might be saving for a down payment on a car or building a substantial emergency fund.
And long-term goals?
Long-term goals are things that take more than 5 years. The most common long-term goal is saving for retirement, but it could also be saving to buy a house or funding your children's education.
So you should have goals in all 3 categories?
It's a good idea. That way, you're not just thinking about the future, you also have some goals that you can achieve relatively soon, which keeps you motivated.
I like that. If all your goals are 20 years away, it's hard to stay motivated because you don't see progress.
Exactly. Short-term wins keep you engaged and build good habits. Then those habits help you achieve your bigger long-term goals.
How much detail should a financial goal have?
The more specific, the better. Let me give you an example. Instead of saying, I want to save money for retirement, a better goal would be, I want to contribute $500 per month to my retirement account, which will give me approximately $200,000 in 20 years.
Wow, that's much more specific.
You know exactly how much to save each month and what the result will be.
Right. And when you have that level of detail, you can actually create a plan to make it happen.
What if you have multiple goals but can't afford to work on all of them at once?
Great question. You need to prioritize. Generally, I would suggest this order. First, build a small emergency fund of at least $1,000. Second, pay off high-interest debt, like credit cards. Third, build your emergency fund to 3 to 6 months of expenses. Fourth, start saving for retirement. Fifth, work on other goals like saving for a house or a vacation.
Why is the emergency fund first?
Because without an emergency fund, any unexpected expense will force you to go into debt. If your car breaks down and you don't have savings, you'll have to use a credit card, which creates more debt.
That makes sense. You need that safety net first.
Exactly. Once you have that basic protection, then you can focus on eliminating debt and building wealth.
This is really helpful. I think having clear goals and priorities makes financial planning much less overwhelming.
It does. When you know what you're working toward and why, it's easier to make good financial decisions every day.
We've talked about a lot of good financial practices, but what about mistakes? What are the most common money mistakes people make?
Oh, there are so many. Let's talk about the biggest ones so people can avoid them.
What's the number one mistake?
I think the biggest mistake is living beyond your means, spending more than you earn.
Why is that such a common problem?
Because it's so easy to do. With credit cards, you can buy things even when you don't have the money. It feels good in the moment, but eventually you have to pay it all back with interest.
So people are borrowing from their future selves?
Exactly. And usually their future self is in a worse position because now they have less money due to debt payments.
What's another big mistake?
Not having an emergency fund. We talked about this earlier, but it's worth repeating. Life is unpredictable and unexpected expenses will happen.
Like medical bills or car repairs.
Yes, or losing your job, having your rent increase, or needing to help a family member. Without an emergency fund, these situations become crises.
What else?
Paying only the minimum payment on credit cards. This is a huge mistake. If you only pay the minimum, you'll be in debt for years and pay thousands of dollars in interest.
I can see how that could trap people in a cycle of debt.
It does. Another big mistake is not investing for retirement when you're young.
But we talked about that earlier. Why is it such a big mistake?
Because of compound interest and time. If you wait until you're 40 to start saving for retirement, you'll need to save much more each month than if you started at 25. You lose all those years of growth.
So procrastination is really expensive when it comes to retirement.
Very expensive. Even if you can only save a little bit when you're young, it's better than waiting until you can save more.
What about lifestyle inflation? What's that?
Lifestyle inflation is when your spending increases every time your income increases. For example, you get a raise at work, and instead of saving that extra money, you immediately upgrade your apartment, buy a nicer car, and eat at fancier restaurants.
So your lifestyle expands to match your new income?
Exactly. And then you're still living paycheck to paycheck, just at a higher income level.
What should people do instead?
When you get a raise, try to save at least half of it. You can enjoy some of the increase, but don't let your entire lifestyle expand with your income.
That's smart. What other mistakes should people avoid?
Not reading the fine print. Whether it's a credit card, a loan, a phone contract, or any financial agreement, you need to understand what you're signing.
I know a lot of people just skim those long documents or skip them entirely.
I know, but those documents contain really important information. What's the interest rate? Are there fees? What are the penalties? You need to know these things.
What about mixing finances with friends or family? Is that a mistake?
It can be. Lending money to friends or family is tricky. If they don't pay you back, it can ruin the relationship.
So should you never lend money to family?
Not necessarily never, but you should only lend money that you can afford to lose. If you lend someone $500, assume you might never get it back. If you can't afford that, don't lend it.
That's good advice. Is there one final big mistake you want to mention?
Yes, not educating yourself about money. Financial literacy is so important, but many people never learn about it. They make expensive mistakes that could have been avoided with basic knowledge.
And that's one reason we're having this conversation today.
Exactly. The more you learn about personal finance, the better decisions you can make.
Let's talk about something aspirational, building wealth. What does wealth mean to you?
That's a big question. I think wealth means having enough money that you don't have to worry about it constantly. You can cover your needs, save for the future, and enjoy some nice things without stress.
I like that definition. Wealth isn't just about being super rich, it's about financial security and freedom.
So, how do regular people build wealth? Most of us aren't going to win the lottery or inherit a fortune.
You're right. But the good news is that building wealth is possible for regular people. It just takes time, discipline, and smart decisions.
Where do you start?
I think the foundation of building wealth is the same principles we've been discussing all along. Spend less than you earn, save consistently, invest wisely, and give it time.
It sounds simple when you put it that way.
The concept is simple, but doing it consistently over many years requires discipline. That's why so many people don't build wealth, not because they can't, but because they don't stick with it.
What's a realistic timeline for building wealth?
It depends on your goals and definition of wealth, but generally, building significant wealth takes decades, not years. That's why starting early is so important.
Let's say someone starts at age 25. What could they realistically achieve by age 65?
Well, if they consistently save and invest $500 per month with an average return of 7%, they could have over $1 million by retirement.
$1 million? That sounds amazing, but also unrealistic for many people. Not everyone can save $500 per month.
You're right, but even if you can only save $200 per month, that would still grow to over $500,000 over 40 years.
That's still a lot of money. I think the key message is that consistent saving, even in small amounts, can lead to significant wealth over time.
Exactly. The key word is consistent. You can't save for a few months, stop for a year, start again, and expect great results. You need to make it a habit for decades.
What about increasing your income? Is that part of building wealth?
Absolutely. There are two sides to building wealth: reducing expenses and increasing income. We've talked a lot about reducing expenses, but increasing income is just as important.
How do people increase their income?
There are many ways. You can develop new skills to get promotions or better paying jobs. You can start a side business. You can invest in assets that generate passive income.
What's passive income?
Passive income is money you earn without actively working for it. For example, if you own rental property, you earn rent every month. If you own dividend-paying stocks, you receive regular dividend payments.
So passive income is like your money working for you instead of you working for money.
Perfect way to put it. Building passive income streams is a powerful way to build wealth.
Is real estate a good way to build wealth?
It can be. Many people have built wealth through real estate, either by buying rental properties or by buying a home and watching it appreciate in value over time.
But real estate requires a lot of money up front, doesn't it?
Usually, yes. You typically need a down payment, which might be 10 to 20% of the property price. But once you own property, it can grow in value and generate rental income if you choose to rent it out.
What about starting a business? Is that a good way to build wealth?
It can be, but it's also risky. Many businesses fail, especially in the first few years. If you have a good idea and the skills to execute it, starting a business can potentially create significant wealth, but you should never risk money you can't afford to lose.
So there are many paths to building wealth, not just one way.
Exactly. Some people build wealth through their careers, some through investing, some through real estate, some through starting businesses. Often it's a combination of several strategies.
What's the most important thing to remember about building wealth?
I think it's this. Building wealth is a marathon, not a sprint. Don't try to get rich quickly. That usually leads to risky decisions and losses. Instead, make smart, consistent decisions over a long period of time.
Anna, we've spent this whole conversation talking about managing money, saving, investing, and building wealth. But here's a question. Does money actually make you happy?
That's such an important question, and the answer is complicated.
What do you mean?
Well, research shows that money does increase happiness, but only up to a certain point.
What point is that?
Studies suggest that once you earn enough money to comfortably cover your basic needs, food, shelter, healthcare, and some enjoyment, additional money doesn't significantly increase happiness.
So being super wealthy doesn't make you much happier than being comfortably middle class?
According to research, not really. Once your basic needs are met and you have some financial security, other factors become more important for happiness, like relationships, health, purpose, and community.
That's interesting. So money is important, but only to a point.
Exactly. Money can definitely make you unhappy if you don't have enough of it. Constantly worrying about paying rent or affording food is very stressful.
But once you're past that point of financial stress, more money doesn't necessarily equal more happiness.
Right. In fact, some very wealthy people are quite unhappy. They might have relationship problems, health issues, or feel like their life lacks purpose.
So what's the right relationship to have with money?
I think money should be viewed as a tool, not as a goal in itself. The goal should be to live a good life. Money is just one tool that helps you do that.
Can you explain more?
Sure, money gives you options and freedom. It means you can afford health care if you get sick. You can help family members who need support. You can take time off work to spend with your children. You can pursue hobbies you enjoy.
So money enables you to do things that make you happy, but the money itself isn't the source of happiness.
Exactly. The happiest people are often those who use their money wisely to create a life aligned with their values.
What does that mean practically?
It means thinking about what actually matters to you and spending your money accordingly. If family is important to you, maybe you spend money on family vacations or living near relatives. If learning is important, maybe you invest in courses or books.
But you don't just spend money on things because society says they're important.
Right. A lot of people buy expensive cars or luxury items to impress others, but those things don't usually lead to lasting happiness.
I've heard the term keeping up with the Joneses. What does that mean?
It means trying to match your neighbors' or friends' spending and lifestyle. If your neighbor buys a new car, you feel like you need one too. If your friend goes on an expensive vacation, you feel pressure to do the same.
And that's a bad thing?
It's bad for your finances and your happiness. You end up spending money to impress other people instead of on things that actually matter to you. And you'll never be satisfied because there's always someone with more.
So what should people do instead?
Focus on your own values and goals. Define what a good life means to you and use money as a tool to create that life. Don't compare yourself to others.
That sounds like good advice. What about experiences versus things? I've heard that spending money on experiences makes people happier than buying things.
Research supports that. People tend to get more lasting happiness from experiences like travel, concerts, or time with friends than from buying material possessions.
Why is that?
Experiences create memories that last forever. A new phone or piece of clothing quickly becomes normal, but memories stay with you.
So if you're going to spend money on enjoyment, spend it on experiences.
As a general rule, yes, experiences usually bring more long-term satisfaction.
What's the bottom line when it comes to money and happiness?
Having enough money to meet your needs and feel secure is important. But beyond that, how you use your money matters more than how much you have.
That's a great way to end our conversation about money.
I think so too. Money matters, but it's not the most important thing in life.
Well, Anna, we've covered so much today about money and the economy.
We really have. From budgeting and saving to investing and building wealth, we've talked about many important financial topics.
I hope everyone watching learned some useful information that they can apply to their own lives.
Me too. Remember, you don't need to be an expert to manage your money well. Just start with the basics. Spend less than you earn, save consistently, and educate yourself over time.
Thank you so much for watching and learning with us today, everyone.
Yes, thank you. And if you found this conversation helpful, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more English learning content.
See you in the next video.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.